Coronation Street fans, here's your first look at Leanne Battersby's new romance storyline as Idris Nasir makes an instant impression on her. Show bosses have cast Junade Khan in the role of Idris, who is the cousin of established character Alia Nasir. Next week, Idris crosses paths with Leanne during a visit to Speed Doll and Sparks Fly. When Leanne later joins Idris for a drink in the Rovers, she suggests that opposites could attract. She's known for fiery outbursts, while Idris seems to be calm and level-headed. Idris clearly agrees, as he wastes little time before moving in for a spontaneous kiss. Speaking recently about this storyline, show newcomer Junade commented, "They actually recognize each other from a family wedding where they sat at the same table. The connection is instant. He likes Leanne because she's real. He's used to flashy people, but when he sees Leanne fending off a group of guys who aren't paying their bill, he sees a strength in her that he admires. It reminds him of his own mother, who raised him as a single parent. He sees a strength in Leanne that he probably wishes he'd had in his own life. Working with Jane Danson has been amazing. Even on her day off, she came in to meet me. She's really made this experience special." Coronation Street's producer Kate Brooks has also said, "Idris is very charming, the charm oozes out of every pore of this guy. He's a savvy businessman and he's got a bit of a ruthless streak. He's not ready to get his hands even slightly dirty. But he can charm the birds from the trees." Idris is a new love interest for Leanne. The attraction is instantaneous. It gives Leanne a new lease of life. She's been harboring a deep-rooted resentment towards Toya and Nick, because that's the life she had. But then this guy comes along, he's got it all and he makes her laugh. He's funny, he's a handsome chap and he ruffles a lot of feathers, but he's not without an edge. He's not soft and he's certainly no pushover. He butts heads with some of our more alpha characters quite early on. We're really excited about Idris, he's brilliant. Coronation Street, a kiss that changes everything. The rain had been falling over Weatherfield since early evening, turning the cobbles of the famous street into a shimmering mirror of flickering streetlights and restless shadows. Inside the warmth of the bistro, life went on as usual, clinking glasses, low conversations, the quiet hum of a place that had seen too many secrets to ever be surprised again. But tonight felt different. Tonight, something was about to shift. And it all began with Idris. No one in the bistro could quite place him properly. He wasn't entirely new, but he wasn't familiar either. He arrived in Weatherfield like a man stepping out of a half-remembered dream, polite, composed, and carrying an air of someone who had learned to hide his past behind carefully measured smiles. To most, he was just Idris. Quiet. Observant. A man who listened more than he spoke. But to Leanne Battersby, he was something else entirely. Leanne Battersby had always been a survivor. Weatherfield had shaped her into someone sharp-edged and resilient, a woman who had been burned too many times to trust warmth easily. Yet Idris had not approached her like others did, with charm, bravado, or desperation. He approached her like she was a puzzle he didn't intend to solve quickly. And somehow, that unsettled her more than anything else. The first conversations. It started small. Idris would appear at the bistro during quieter hours. He'd order something simple, coffee, sometimes a glass of water, and sit near the window, watching the street as if it told stories only he could understand. Leanne noticed him before she spoke to him. That was her habit, observe first, decide later. The first time they spoke, it wasn't planned. "Do you always stare at the rain like it owes you money?" she asked one evening as she cleared a nearby table. Idris didn't look away from the window. "Only when it refuses to stop," he replied. That made her pause. Not the answer itself, but the tone, calm, almost amused, yet carrying something heavier beneath it. She set the cloth down. "Deep, that." He finally looked at her then. His eyes were steady, dark, unreadable. "Not deep," he said. "Just honest." Something about that word stuck with her. Honest. In Weatherfield, honesty was rare currency. And Leanne wasn't sure she trusted it. A slow burn. Days turned into weeks. Their conversations grew longer, less accidental. Idris began to occupy a corner of her thoughts she didn't want to acknowledge. He never pushed. Never demanded attention. He simply existed in her orbit, steady as gravity. And that was the problem. Leanne was used to chaos, men who lied, who shouted, who loved loudly and destructively before disappearing just as fast. Idris did none of that. He listened when she spoke about work, nodded when she complained about customers, and never once tried to steer her emotions in his direction. It should have made him boring. Instead, it made him dangerous. One night after closing, Leanne found him still outside the bistro, standing beneath the dim street lamp as rain misted around him. "You waiting for someone?" she asked. He shook his head. "Just thinking." "About?" He hesitated, then said, "How places change people. Or how people think they change places." Leanne folded her arms. "And which one do you believe?" Idris glanced at her. "I think it's usually the people who don't notice they're changing." That line lingered in her mind long after she went home. Underneath the surface, Weatherfield had its rhythm, drama, gossip, heartbreak, but beneath it all, there were quieter currents. Idris moved through them carefully, as though he was always measuring distance. Leanne, however, began to notice inconsistencies. He never spoke about his past. He avoided personal questions with practiced ease. And yet, he knew things, small things, that he shouldn't. The way people lied when they were nervous. The way certain truths always surfaced in silence rather than speech. She confronted him one afternoon. "You're not just some guy who likes coffee and philosophy," she said bluntly. Idris didn't deny it. Instead, he asked, "Does it matter?" "To me?" "Yes." That was the first time she saw something crack in his composure. Not fear. Restraint. "I didn't come here to cause trouble," he said quietly. Leanne studied him. "That's what they all say." Then Idris added, softer, "I came here to leave trouble behind." The night everything shifted. It happened on a night when Weatherfield felt unusually still. The wind had dropped. The rain had stopped. Even the usual distant noise of arguments and passing cars seemed muted. Leanne was locking up the bistro when she noticed Idris sitting inside, though she was certain she had seen him leave earlier. "You planning to move in now?" she called through the glass. He smiled faintly. "Just needed somewhere quiet." She unlocked the door again, sighing. "You've got a talent for picking inconvenient places. I prefer to think of it as meaningful timing." She rolled her eyes but let him stay. They sat across from each other in the dim light of the empty bistro. No customers. No noise. Just two people suspended in a silence that felt unusually fragile. Idris finally spoke. "Do you ever feel like you're always one decision away from a different life?" Leanne leaned back in her chair. "Every day." "And do you ever take that step?" "That depends," she said. "On whether I trust what's on the other side." That answer seemed to settle something in him. For the first time, Idris looked uncertain. "You shouldn't trust me," he said. Leanne frowned. "Bit late for warnings, isn't it?" He almost smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I mean it." Silence stretched between them. Then Leanne stood up, circling the table slowly. "You keep saying things like that, but you're still here." "I don't know how to leave," he admitted. That honesty hit harder than anything else he had ever said. The kiss. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even intentional at first. Leanne stopped in front of him, searching his face as if she could read the truth hidden behind it. "You're impossible to figure out," she said quietly. Idris looked up at her. "That's not true." "Then tell me what you are." A beat. Another. And then something changed, not in the room, but between them. Idris stood slowly. He was close enough now that the air between them felt charged, uncertain. "I'm trying," he said. Leanne didn't move. "Trying what?" "To not ruin things that feel real." That was the moment everything collapsed. Not loudly. Not violently. Just inevitability. Leanne stepped forward first. And kissed him. It wasn't a soft, hesitant kiss. It was controlled, deliberate, like someone testing whether fire still burned before deciding to step closer. For a second, Idris didn't respond. Then something inside him broke open. He kissed her back. And it was not careful anymore. It was everything he had been holding back. When they finally pulled apart, the silence that followed was heavier than before. Leanne exhaled slowly. "Well," she said, voice uneven, "that happened." Idris looked at her like he didn't quite trust reality anymore. "Yes," he said. "It did." Aftermath. In Weatherfield, nothing stays hidden for long. By morning, gossip had already begun to spread, whispers outside the cabin, speculation in the Rovers, curious glances from passers-by who had seen too much and understood too little. Leanne tried to act normal. She failed. Every time she saw Idris, she felt the echo of that kiss like a second heartbeat she couldn't silence. Idris, however, had changed in a different way. He was more distant. More careful. As if the kiss had opened a door he was now afraid to walk through. "You're avoiding me," Leanne said one afternoon. "I'm not," he replied. "You are." A pause. "I don't know what happens next," he admitted. Leanne crossed her arms. "That's not exactly comforting." "It's honest." There was that word again. Honest. It was becoming both a bridge and a warning. The secret he carries. Eventually, it came out, not in a dramatic confession, but in fragments. Idris had come to Weatherfield to escape something. Not a person, but consequences. A life built on choices he no longer wanted to defend. He hadn't lied about wanting peace. But peace, as it turned out, had found him too late. Leanne listened without interrupting. When he finished, she sat in silence for a long time. "So what now?" she asked finally. Idris shook his head. "I don't know if I stay. Or if I should." Leanne studied him. "You don't get to decide everything alone," she said. That surprised him. "You still want this?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she said, "I want the truth. Whatever happens after that, we deal with it." The choice. That night, Idris stood outside the bistro again. Rain had started falling once more, soft and steady, like the beginning of a cycle repeating itself. Leanne joined him outside. "You going to run?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. For the first time, he looked tired. Not emotionally guarded, not composed, just human. "No," he said finally. "I think I've done enough running." Leanne nodded slowly. "Good." A pause. Then she added, "Because I'm not chasing you." That almost made him smile. Almost. He stepped closer, just enough that the space between them felt familiar now instead of uncertain. "You still angry about the kiss?" he asked. Leanne looked at him. "No." Confused. "Bit." That made him exhale softly. "Me too." And then, quieter, he said, "But I didn't regret it." Leanne didn't answer immediately. Instead, She reached out and took his hand. Not as a question. As a decision. A new beginning. In Weatherfield, relationships rarely began cleanly. They formed in chaos, survived on resilience, and endured through whatever the street decided to throw at them. Idris and Leanne were no different. But something about them felt like a different kind of storm, not destructive, but transformative. The kind that doesn't destroy what's there. It reveals it. And as they stood together under the dim streetlight, rain beginning to fall again, neither of them knew what came next. But for the first time, neither of them needed to run from it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Coronation.